Welcome, TTB community. I am Bob Demena, and here with me, as always, is the indispensable Elliot Chidley.
Thank you, Bob. I like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would I would say the same for you because without you, this podcast is nothing.
yeah. And without you, this podcast is slightly less.
Thank you for that. That means the world.
Yeah.
All right. So we're changing up our intros a little bit. We want to talk about our guests first, and then we'll get into some of the promos. So today's episode is with Keshler Thibert. He is born and raised in North Philly, and Keshler's route to becoming a tour guide is what we're going to be talking about today and his tours. So he commenced his journey, his journey to becoming a tour guide after quitting his job at Aramark and living abroad until he could find some direction. And after 3 different experiences traveling abroad in Athens, Auckland, and Madrid, he began to consider the journey to become a tour guide. And what ultimately made him make the jump was a visit to the Lest We Forget Slavery Museum, where he realized how much local and world history is often ignored. And that is what led him to become a contributing writer with Hidden Philadelphia and joining the Association of Philadelphia Tour Guides. And after learning that, he became a private guide with Tours by Locals. And we've had several guides on from Tours by Locals, including Gary and Simon, and now Keshler. And today, he has moved on to offering tours that focus on specific themes in the Philly area, such as the Other Philadelphia, food tours, and 2 tours which are available exclusively through the Traveler's Blueprint. And the thing that he really interested is making sure people who even know Philly, who have lived in Philly, learn more about the city and offering very, very cool insight that people normally wouldn't get. And it's to basically move travelers into that realm and position to learn and interact with those different cultures.
Yeah, and he is incredibly passionate. I'm a sucker for passion, and he is very
Yeah.
passionate. He's very passionate about his tours in Philadelphia and travel. So I'm really looking forward to us growing that relationship with him and him not only offering exclusive tours to the Travelers Blueprint community, but getting him on again and just working it with him over and over in the future. Elliot, we're gonna meet him one day in Philly and hang
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, once we're able to. So. Okay, before we get into the conversation, though, very quickly, I want to promote the Traveler's Blueprint community group. It's a private Facebook group. It's something that I will admit was neglected for a while in the past. However, I'm trying to make a conscious effort to revitalize that group, sort of bring people who listen to the podcast together to discuss anything related to the conversation, to travel. If you have a specific question on, how do I book the cheapest flight possible to Rome, and you type it in there, I'll help you out. If you need, if you have additional questions on a guest, for example, Keshler, you want to learn more about the city of Philadelphia, ask it in there and you will get an answer. So join it. It's a private group. I'll approve you and we can grow that together. Subscribe to our YouTube. That's a good place. That's another area that we're trying to grow. If you
Yeah. Well, I should say if you're subscribed to our YouTube, then subscribe to our podcast and vice versa. If you're wow, that is hard to say. If you are subscribed to our podcast, then you should subscribe to our YouTube as well.
Great
Say
point.
that 5 times fast.
Yeah, yeah, we're all over social media. So Instagram is one that we've been using for a while, but I think we're going to try to uh, bring up our YouTube and bring up our Facebook. So the website is the last thing I'm going to promote today before we get into the conversation. If you subscribe to the newsletter, which is essentially an update of what we're doing behind the scenes, you will get a free cheat sheet, a travel cheat sheet, which just breaks down different ways you can save money and plan your trip. We offer a travel consulting service where you can sit down with me one on one and go through the nitty gritty details of your trip from booking your airfare to navigating the city to the day you leave. Check it out. If you're interested, reach out. What else are we doing? We have a few things in production, and you know what? I think I'm gonna leave it off there. Let's just get into
Well, but
the.
before we get into the episode, I do want to thank Happy Sailor 1965 for the latest review on our iTunes page. The review reads that Bob and Elliot hit the mark with every episode as they take us in to the souls of travelers where we gain a great insight to the world and how others see it. Great hosts, great show, an asset to the podcast community. Highly recommend. That's a very nice review.
It is a very nice review. Those things, it sounds, I don't know, cliche or something, but they really warm your heart,
They
because
do.
we do put in a lot of work. I mean, we choose to do it. I love doing this, but when you get acknowledged for, or some sort of acknowledgement for it, it's so gratifying. It feels really good that people actually enjoy the work that we're putting into
Yeah.
this. So,
So thank
thank
you
you.
very much, Happy Sailor 1965.
Yeah, and lastly, right before we get into this podcast with Keshler, I just want to reiterate that we do have tours with him posted on our website that you can only get through our website. And so if you're interested in booking a tour, visiting Philadelphia, whether or not you are a living in a different state, you live in Philadelphia and you want to learn more, you can check those tours out on our website and feel free to let us know what you think of them. That's it. Let's get into the podcast. So, without further introduction, please give it up for our next guest, Keshler Thibert.
Welcome to the Traveler's Blueprint. Start designing your next adventure.
Keshler, welcome to the Traveler's Blueprint podcast.
Thank you for having me here. I'm surprised that you invited me.
Yeah, well, I'm not. You're very highly rated on tours by locals. You have
All my
some.
family members, all live.
Well, that's good that your family likes you.
Yeah. Let that and a lot of payouts.
Yeah,
Neighbors,
they're,
friends, they
I,
support.
nonetheless, they were very good, and the titles of your tours were intriguing. A lot of food,
Yes,
and
I'm a
and from
robust, I'm a robust gentleman. So,
there we go.
and
Well,
more
that's
Philadelphia sized. That's
and
Yes.
as most of our listeners know, Philadelphia is sort of our home base, our home city. Neither of us technically live in Philadelphia anymore, which,
all right.
yeah, Get Keshler is going to forgive us on, but we
All right.
still consider it home.
Yeah.
And so this is cool. This is our first time. We've talked to people who have traveled the entire planet from every continent, but this is the first time we're actually sitting down and talking about our home city.
Yeah.
So excited. Yeah. In a few sentences, do you mind giving like a quick bio or on what you do and the type of tours that you have in Philadelphia?
All right. I got okay.
Hey, we
I'll
said
take a
quick.
whole hour. I'll take a whole hour. Okay.
Yeah.
About that. Well, what I do is a few things. One, I'm a writer, a contributing writer for Hidden Philadelphia. Uh, Tour guide. Sorry, I'm going all over the place. I'm trying to like summarize everything and make it digestible for everyone. But the reason I became a tour guide is because there are a lot of parts of Philadelphia just being like looked over, and when people come here, they simply go Liberty Bell, Independence Mall, Art Museum, and that's it. And I was looking like, there's so much more to Philly than that. It's like, if I could actually show people and talk about the parts of Philly that never talked about, they'll perhaps want to like know more about Philly and perhaps stay in Philly much longer. So things kind of just evolved from there, from just like me writing an article from Philly in Philadelphia, then me starting to say, you know what, I'm not just going to write about Philly, I want to show people Philly, and it just snowballed from there. So each one of my tours really kind of focuses on areas that Philly really doesn't get like highlighted on. Of course, there's like the basic Philly, like the cheesesteak, the Liberty Bell, et cetera, et cetera. Then there's other tours that kind of like, let's focus on South Philly and Chinatown and all these other areas. Let's focus on the Underground Railroad, which Philadelphia was a big part of. Like, let's focus on that area. Let's just focus on the American Revolution, that area. So each one of my tours is part of Philadelphia that people really don't look at, except for that 101 Philadelphia introduction tour. Sorry, I hope I answered your question. I felt myself kind of rambling on, and I was like, all right,
No,
bring it back.
That's perfect. And something that I think most people forget outside of the world of Philadelphia to realize is that Philadelphia is probably one of the most historic cities in the nation, if not the most historic city. I think there's an argument to be made there that it is the most historic or one of the most important cities for the founding of this nation. And even moving past that, industry, a lot of firsts are in Philadelphia. You have the first U.S. Mint, you have the first newspaper, you have the first zoo, you have the first and you can, and it goes on and on. The list goes on, and there are so many institutions that were developed in Philadelphia that we now use today throughout the country. And when you tell people that, I've noticed people kind of take a step back, like, "Whoa, the first?"
Yeah.
this is where it started? Like where? Tell me more. Where, and let me learn more about the city. And so there's so much to unravel. Uh,
Yeah, I say that to people during tours. I say, I'm literally giving you two tours, an introduction. I'm giving you two tours. And I say, first, I'm going to talk about Philly a little bit. Then I'm just going to talk about US history. And then I go to about like 1800 and I say, okay, Philly's no longer the capital, which is another thing that blows people's minds when I tell them like, Philly is, I'm going to say, the second capital of the United States. I'm going to give New York, in Hamilton, it's a little shout out. They only had it for a few months, but I say like Philadelphia was the capital of the United States. Germantown did have like the other like White House was out there. So yeah, George Washington, Ben Franklin, all those guys, they walked these streets, they walked these avenues. And I try to hammer it like this is the stuff that as an American you hear about in school. And they're like, oh wow, what? Really? Oh man, this is where Ben Franklin got drunk? Yes, this is where Ben Franklin got drunk. This is it. This is where Hamilton lived. This is you saw the musical? You know that little ditty that yeah, this is it. They're like, whoa, blown away. And then I say, okay, stop. We're at Fifth and Market. Stop. Now let's talk about Philly. I'm like, oh wow, there's the other half of it. There's the other half of the equation.
Huh. I really like that because there is the importance of the history and understanding it, and that's a good way to get the foundation of the city and what it means. But obviously, it's evolved dramatically into what it is today. There's a beautiful food scene. There's a great nightlife scene, and so I think Elliot, unless you have any objections, should we just ask about the food and dive into maybe the food first, or Keshler, if you have a preference on how you want to run the show?
So you guide me because, like I said, I'll ramble on and just talk about everything, and then like 3 hours later, people are trying to figure out what exactly happened to you too, and it's like you're still talking to him. So you guide me, you hold my hand, and you take me.
All right. So if you're listening to this and you're interested in coming to Philadelphia, what I'm going to say is,
or if you live in Philadelphia and you want to know more about the city, pay attention.
Well, if you are interested in traveling to Philly and you are interested in the Independence Hall and the Art Museum and things like that, maybe do your research elsewhere. I think for the basis of this podcast, we'll go a little bit deeper into Philadelphia because there's an abundance of information on Old City, which is where Independence Hall is located, the Liberty Bell, and things like that. So let's maybe put that on the back burner and get a little bit deeper. So the food. Where to begin, Keshler? Walk us through it.
Where to go? That's a hard one because like when I give because there's so much, and I know a lot of people think Philly is simply cheesesteaks and that's it. And I say cheesesteak is a good place to start. There's so much more. Because another thing I try to hammer down on the tour is like Philadelphia is literally a city of people from like all over the world. And I go back, for me personally, I go back to William Penn in the founding of Philadelphia and the surrounding region. And I try to explain to them like William Penn tried to, as a Quaker, a Society of Friends member, he tried to make a place where everyone can come. It didn't matter the denomination, didn't matter where you were from. You can come here and you can have your peace because Quakers, or really Society of Friends, knew what it was like to be persecuted. So they created a place where everyone can kind of come together and live together and do their own thing. And it brought in like Germans, Irish, Italians, like everyone. And over time, again, like African Americans started coming here. You have Latins, Hispanics started coming here. So you have a whole lot of different type of food scenes in one place. So when people talk about like pretzels, Germans brought that over. That's why we have Germantown. It's literally like a German that was really close to like the Dutch border. We have pretzels. Like I grew up eating pretzels. Yeah, and when I went to Germany, I tried their pretzels. Like this tastes exactly like the pretzels I have at home. So one of the first things that make people try is like the Reading Terminal Market. Stop at Miller's, have a pretzel. I'm like, it's delicious. And then we walk a few blocks over, we go to Chinatown. Then we just have like try a few things at Chinatown. Then I'll point out the little speakeasy, Chinatown, and like give them a little lowdown. Then we walk them up like 2 blocks over, and then maybe go to the Burst Building. We go like the Baby Buns, the place I like to go to a lot, or Yuri, and I like try these sliders. I'm like, oh wow, this is good. Like the John, we have the John's. There's the John slider there. We try a little bit of that, and like me, so I pointed like, oh, you can try a pork roll over there, and like they're literally like we're eating. See, I'm not a fine establishment dining eating person. I'm a Philadelphia eater, which is literally let me grab that and eat that and walk, get a swig of Coke and keep on going. And that's how sometimes I take the food tours. Like you're gonna learn a little bit, but you're gonna eat a lot. And after a few blocks, they start getting heavier and it's like, I can't eat anymore. And I say, okay, but it's Philly, just to eat a little bit more. Just a little bit
Well,
more.
that's the great thing about having an abundance of good food in a city is that you can get great food without spending a lot of money.
Yes.
Competition is so high, even for smaller establishments, that still a standard of quality that they need to meet to survive in the city. So it's hard to get. It might be harder to get bad food than good food, even at some of these smaller places. Going back though to the Reading Terminal Market, can you maybe tell us, give us a few of the stops that you would make inside the market itself? And for those listening, the Reading Terminal Market is essentially a giant indoor food market. I think
Yeah.
there's commercial stores too, like retail in there as well.
I always give people before I go every place. I give them people like the little background. Market Street used to be called High Street at one time. It just gained the name of Market Street because there's literally markets up and down the street. So over
Yeah.
time, Philadelphia, I call it Philadelphia kind of finding their culture. They say, you know what, we don't like markets on the street. We don't like the way this looks. Let's get rid of all of this. Let's do something else. That place where the Reading Terminal, the market actually is, there was always something kind of there. So what happens when High became Market Street, that was there. They wanted to knock it down. They said, no, we're not going anywhere. We've been here for a long time. No. So eventually end up building the railroad, sort of the Reading Railroad around the market that was there.
Oh,
So then it just
oh.
developed. So back in the day, meaning like the 1900s, people would actually like place orders. They put it on the train, they take it out to the suburbs, and then they meet the train out at their station, and they pull the food off there. So
Huh.
it just developed organically from that. It's like I said, there's always Philly's a eating town. It was an eating town back in the 1900s as well. So just kind of grew. But when I go there, sorry, I went off on a tangent for a little bit. So when I go there, I try to reinforce the fact, like, listen, Philly, eating for a long time. When I point out like Bassett's ice cream, it's over 100 years. There's Bassett's ice cream. They're like, what? 100 years? I said, yeah. Try it out.
Whoa.
Miller's, like, let's have a little bit of pretzel. Then I may point out if they don't have an opportunity to go to Lancaster, I point out like the Amish, and I talk a little bit about the Amish faith a little bit. There's Amish, and I tell them like, try out the breakfast, because the breakfast, I pat you here, really feeling the Amish. Then I talk about the Dutch history, like here's Dutch Pennsylvanians. You can get some fudge right over there. So I kind of like point out one thing I try to do is I ask a lot of questions, try to figure out their preferences. And then once I know their preferences, say, why don't you try out this? Because it's Philly. There's something for everyone here. It's just most people don't give the city enough of an opportunity to discover what's there. They're literally popping in, popping out. So the Reading Terminal is that perfect opportunity. Like, there's a little bit of Philly there. There's their Dutch history. There's Amish. There's soul food. You have Miss Tootsie's. You can get soul food. You can go to their South Street location, or you can try a little bit right here. You're vegan, vegetarian. There's a big scene starting like that's been like growing the last few years. You can go over there and get some like really good vegan or vegetarian food. I worked in the food industry. Worked for Aramark for a number of years. So like kosher, vegan, vegetarian, gluten free. What are you into? Just tell me. What are you into? Okay, how about that? This. You want a roast pork, which is a slept on, that's a Philly term, slept on a meal. Like, so you want to taste a little South Philly? Let's get the Knicks. Let's go over there. It's like, let's hope there's not a long line. Try a little roast pork. And then I tell them, hold on, we haven't had a cheesesteak yet. Save a little room for the cheesesteak.
All right. Where do you recommend to these tourists?
For cheesesteak?
Yeah.
Me and my friends always argue about this. Another thing you'll learn about Philly, we argue about everything. And everyone has like a different opinion, like where should get a cheesesteak, where should get a cheesesteak. Me, my personal favorites on like a little bit of 4th and South, Ishkabibbles, which is like near the old Jewish quarter, L.I. Street. Nothing about, sorry, running off on tangent. South Street, every few blocks was actually like an old neighborhood. So literally around South Street, there was like the Jewish quarter. And then you had the Italian quarter that goes more into like South Philadelphia. And then you had like the Black African-American section as well. So if you ever read the Philadelphia Negro, like a W.E.B. Du Bois, that's that area. It's like all sandwiched. It was at one time that dividing line between different neighborhoods where if you cross the wrong line, you want to hope that you're the wrong color. You want to hope that you're the right color and you cross that line.
Right.
But sorry, went on from tangent. Ishkabibbles in 4th and South, love it there. It's, for me, it's like very lean. I can eat it and still feel fine afterwards. If you're bold, you can get a gremlin, which is just like this really sugary drink they serve there. I'm not into like eating a lot of sugar and salt. It tastes kind of throws me off, but it's like, it's very sweet. let's just say if you drink it, your teeth are going to feel a little loose afterwards. And it's right across from Jim Steak. Tourists love going to Jim Steaks. I'm not going to say anything bad about them, but for me personally, it's Ishkabibbles. If you want a heartier cheesesteak, then I say Sonny's on 4th and Market. So that's if you want a heartier cheesesteak, that's a good place. But for me, I like a leaner cheesesteak, so Ishkabibbles is my choice. The original location. And plus you get a little bit of Philly history, because if you look on the wall, Ishkabibbles, it's literally like a hole in the wall. You go in, you look at the wall, and there's like autographs of all these like locals on the wall, like from like the Three Stooges, which like Larry Fine was born in like the old Jewish quarter, like the old hip hop stars. You got Will Smith, all these people, as well as guests that just came to Philadelphia to visit. You see their autographs along the wall. So you get a little bit of like Philly culture, you get a Philly meal. And if you want to learn how to say with or without or properly order a cheesesteak, they teach you that as well. They may mess with you a little bit, but they're good people. And that's why I keep going back there. Because when I go there, it's Philly. That's why it's Philly. It's not touristy as anything. And when I take guests there, they're like, man, this is wow, I would have never found this place. It's like, yeah, because Philly keeps their secrets close to them. We don't like revealing our secrets. We're very like blue collar, just kind of chill people. We're just like, it's not a big deal. This is just where we hang out there. And then we look across the street once again, we look at all the tourists and say, that's a long line.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm hungry.
Well, I'm looking at pictures of Ishkabibbles, cheesesteaks.
Yeah, I'm saving all of these.
Oh my God, they look incredible. They're cheese fries, chicken cheesesteak. Oh,
delicious. And many a drunk night.
Yeah.
It's like TLA is across the street. So if a concert goes out, you can just walk right across the street, grab a cheesesteak. They have a window out there on the street, so you can order right there and just eat on the street. And that's what locals do. We walk and eat. We do business to eat. That's how a cheesesteak and hoagies, another local, that's what it was created. It was out of expediency. We got somewhere to go. We need to hustle. We need to make this thing happen. Grab this piece of bread, throw some meat on it, choose some with or without. Boom, we got to go. We got to carry on. That's why I love this city.
Yeah. Dude, that looks so good. I haven't had a cheesesteak in a while either. When I talk to people, about coming to Philly and they ask me which cheesesteak to go to, I always say, check out Gino's and Pat's because of the attraction. Like it's sort of an experience. It's like it's a Philly touristy experience, just like the Liberty Bell is in a way. This is like a similar type of experience as it relates to food. The neon lights, the lines, the pictures that are all over Gino's are very cool to experience. But I always say that just know that you're getting like a fast food cheesesteak.
Yes.
You're getting the equivalent of a little bit of a lesser quality, incredibly greasy. Just it's delicious, especially if you're drunk. They're amazing. Yeah. I've had a ton of them, but it's not the hearty cheesesteak. It's by no means what you see on Ishkabibbles' website. It's
it's a meal. You walk away and you're dripping cheese sauce. That's another thing. You can grab the whole napkin dispenser, grab every napkin there and hold up the cheesesteak, and it will bleed through eventually and drip into your pants. But that's part. Same with hoagies. A Philly hoagie is covered in oil. And it's dripping through the paper. I think there was an episode like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air saying things like, that's a Philly hoagie. It's like, it's all oil dripping through the bag. It's like, and it's perfect. It's got to drip through the bag. It's got to be a little bit oily.
Yeah, those photos look absolutely incredible. I remember the one time that it was you, me, Amanda, and Marlia, right? That one of the last nights we had in Philly while you still lived there. And we were all going out. We went to a few different bars, breweries, clubs, and then we ended at Pat's and Gino's, and we did a blind taste test.
I don't even remember this, so it must have been a good night.
You were that drunk.
Yeah. So Bob and myself, we went and each purchased 2 cheesesteaks from each place and gave half of them to Marlia and Amanda, and they each ate and picked their favorite. And I'm pretty sure the outcome was, I think it was Pat's.
I grew up liking Gino's, but I made a transition at some point, and now I'm a big fan of Pat's. If I have to pick between Gino's and Pat's, I'm going with Pat's.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yep.
Yeah. What about you, Keshler?
Jeez, I don't know, like you were saying earlier about Pat's and Geno's, it was always felt like fast food cheesesteak, so it never like appealed to me that much. And I have to like say like because my upbringing it was always like fresh food and everything's like made from scratch. And in my neighborhood, almost everything is just made from scratch. So it never really like appealed to me. It was like, all right, I need something quick. I just had a couple of rounds and some shots. Okay, let me just have the cheesesteak and this will like fill me up. So I'm good to go. But like I said, once again, I keep going back to Ishkabuls. That is like my if I can't go anywhere else. If it's close enough, I'll go there and I'll get my cheesesteak there. But like I say, Philadelphians, we all say different things. Some people say Pat's, some people will say Sonny's, some people will say Max's up in like North Philly. Everyone will say like something different.
D'Alessandro's is another big one.
Is another one. What's the place on
Steve's?
Yeah,
Steve's big one.
King of Steaks is another one. What was it? I'm trying to think of one on Oregon Avenue.
There's another one down in South Philly too that I can't think of right now. Phillips. Have you ever heard of Phillips?
It's like fifth, sixth in Oregon.
For Phillips?
Yeah.
Let me Google that really quick. Phillips. It looks like it is on Passyunk, West Passyunk. So 2234 West Passyunk Ave.
I think I've been passed by it.
Yeah.
Like I said, everyone has a favorite like cheesesteak place. So it's like you can't get a definitive answer from everyone because everyone will say like get the best cheesesteak here. So it is best to just like travel around, try at different places and determine like which place is best for you.
And going back to what we said earlier, the competition is so steep, especially for cheesesteaks in Philadelphia, that it's hard to get a bad one. These people they're trying to compete with one another to get that hold the crown for a little bit and or get some notoriety. And so they're working their asses off to make sure that they're giving you a great cheesesteak. And so if you go into a pizza shop or a sandwich place in Philadelphia and they serve cheesesteaks, chances are you're going to enjoy it while in the city. Now, that does not translate to other states.
And that's what I was thinking. I was thinking about that, and I was like, I hope he doesn't go in that direction because Philadelphians are harsh on other states or cities serving cheese. When I see cheesesteak, I'll give you an example. I was in Fargo end of last year. I went there and they said Philly cheesesteak on the menu. And I already looked and said, no, wrong. I'm going to order this mess and see what happens. And I saw it. I looked at it and I literally did the.
Yeah.
That's not a cheesesteak. My brother said we went to Nashville and he actually stopped and said, let me come to the kitchen. Let me come to the kitchen. Yeah.
Let me make it for you.
Yeah, it's like, I'll make it. Please just stop what you're doing. And the chef felt so bad. Like, really?
It's funny because I traveled the country for quite a bit of time, and everywhere you go, there's not a pizza place that doesn't have it on the menu. Philly cheesesteak, they advertise it. You see stores. I mean, you're driving in, Alabama, and on the side of the road, there's a sign for a pizza place, and they have Philly cheesesteaks. And so everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie, but they're not quite. They didn't figure out. They didn't get the full list of ingredients because they don't know what they're doing.
I would say it's the bread. If they can't get the bread because it's only available in this region. So immediately, if I'm looking and I see their stacks of bread, and it's like it's not. I'm not going to say the name because I don't want other people like trying to get our bread and take it away from us. But if you don't see it, you're like that logo. I say nope.
Yeah,
you've already made a mistake.
My wife lived in Virginia for a while, D.C. area. She would tell me that the cheesesteaks down there, they would put lettuce and tomato and onion on them.
That's not a cheesesteak.
That's a California cheesesteak.
No, it should be against the law. That should be a criminal act.
Like a few years ago, someone tried to put shrimp in a cheesesteak, and people were rioting. Like, how can you put shrimp in a cheesesteak? No, that's not a cheesesteak. No. Lettuce, tomatoes, like all this other stuff. No.
No, get it out of there.
If you're listening to me, listen to my words. If you see lettuce, tomatoes, shrimp, that is not a cheesesteak. Okay?
Right.
Come to Philadelphia, try a real cheesesteak. Any of the places we mentioned, even if you haven't found a definitive place that you enjoy, just get a real cheesesteak, make up your own mind.
In my opinion, there's only one extra topping that should be allowed on a cheesesteak, and it's either onions or not onions. That's it.
Yes. With or without.
Right. That's it. That's the only topping allowed. Now, the cheese, I am a believer in Cheese Whiz. I think if you're going in, you got to go in hard. However, I'm more willing now as a as a more accepting adult to say it's okay if you want to get American cheese or maybe adventure out with your cheese. But I think if you want to get into the real South Philly cheesesteak, you got to go with the cheese
It's
whiz.
awesome. Yeah. I'm same thing with tours. I tell them like, all right, we're going to go into this place. I tell them, please don't embarrass me. I'm going to tell you how to order properly. And then we go in and then like they'll order. And I know they're not going to say, because they're not from here, they don't say it properly, but at least they try. And everyone kind of like, you're not from around here. That's cool. But you're trying. So we give you that respect. It's like, all right, here's a real cheesesteak. Here's the meat. Choose your cheese with or without. Here's your bread. And they eat it. And it's like, wow, this doesn't taste like cheesesteak near my house. It's like, of course, because that wasn't a cheesesteak. That was a fraud. Now you're trying.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I have two restaurants that I love in Philly. One of them is Bibu in South Philly. It is a French little restaurant, and it's BYOB. It is phenomenal. It's all prefix menus, and it is one of my favorite places to go. I also love Green Eggs Cafe.
Yes, been there many times. Yes.
So those are the two I typically frequent when I'm down there.
Listeners, please heed my words. Philly, every neighborhood has got their own flavor. If you come to Philly and you only stay downtown and try the foods there, you're depriving yourself. Because if you come to North Philly, now you have the Latin, Hispanic community. You have a small Cambodian community. You have so much different food, Jamaican food, delicious. You go to South Philly, real Italian meals. Still gets me to say when I go to like the South Philly and everyone's dressed nice and the whole family are going to eat dinner, I'm like, wow, real Italian food. And once again, going back to the history, you have restaurants that have been there for over 100 years, passed over for like generation to generation, and it's still there and it's still like doing great business. Passyunk Avenue now with like the Southeast Asian foods that are up and down that block, as well as the breweries. I love beer. So it's like, there's so much. So what I tell people to do sometimes, after you get the cheesesteak, because when people come here, they want cheesesteak, they want the things that Philadelphia is known for, get that out your system. Enjoy it, have fun. You're going to sleep well that night. But if you can, and if your hotel has like a gym, exercise, burn off as much as possible, and literally go to the different neighborhoods and try out different food. Go to Yard's Brewery on Spring Garden. They set up their new brewery. That whole street, Philadelphia was a brewery town at one time, like big brewery town. Kept making beer, even though the prohibition happened. I won't get into that. But like up and down that street, you have so many breweries up and down that street now. I've walked people from 2nd and Spring Garden to south of Broad Street and stopped at a brewery like every 2 blocks.
Yeah. Yeah, Second Story Brewing Company is a great one in that location. Yeah.
So I do want to ask too, are you familiar with Chef's Table, the Netflix documentary series? And it highlights restaurants, like some of the best restaurants from around the world. And there's, I want to say 3rd season highlighted South Philly barbacoa.
Yeah, I've never been there. There's always a long line.
Probably because of that. But it is one thing that is on my bucket list when my wife and I come to Philly. And every time we go, because it's got odd hours.
Yes.
And every time we go, it's like, can we fit it in? If not, next time.
Yeah, I've been curious because, like I said, they have very select hours, and if you go there, there's a long line just out there, and I'm just like, I'm not going to wait.
What do they serve?
Barbacoa.
Right. I'm not really familiar with them.
It is like true Mexican barbacoa.
And now that's something like great about Phil is like the Italian market area has changed where you go like it's Italian up to a certain point, then it turns into like Mexican, and now you have this new little like restaurants popping up like Connie's Rick Rack in that area. So that's where you find the barbecue place, and it's like now you get like Mexican food. It's like delicious, and you have families make it and stuff. It's like great. It's like, it's different. I like that Philly keeps changing. I was talking to someone like a few days ago, and they're like, I've seen all of Philly. And I was like, okay, take a break from Philly, come back in 2 years, and the food scene be like entirely different. We got Little Africa in West Philly now. I go there, I get like West African food, like a baobab, uh,
Whoa,
delicious,
really?
home, like
What?
rich foods, like delicious. You know, back to South Philly, like Passyunk Avenue, you have all that Southeast Asian food. You can go everywhere. You got Lebanese food, you got Moroccan food off of like South Street. There's something there for everyone. No matter, like, if you've been all over the world, you can find all of that food right here in Philadelphia. You just got to travel around to find it.
Wow. Yeah, and I think we will do it. I mean, this is now something for those listening to do in a post-coronavirus world where you might be stuck figuring out ways to travel deeper within our own country, revisiting cities that you might have already been to and figuring out new ways to experience them. Keshler, all the information you gave us today so far seems to be a perfect way to do that.
It's great.
Absolutely.
I think like everyone else is like, I'm cooking a lot more. So it's more like I'm calling on people. It's like my friend who's lives in a community outside of like Boston, Stoughton, which is like a Portuguese community. And they're just like their first generation. I say, hey, can your mom send me a recipe or two? I love Portuguese bread. Like, can you send me? Like, yeah, no problem. Or like outside the suburbs, we have like a Bangladesh community, like around like Lansdale, North Wales. I'm like, can your mom give me a recipe? And they're like, yeah, no problem. I asked my mom. It's like, thank you. And like they'll send me something. So like that Colombian neighborhoods, like the Dominican neighborhoods. I like to go to Tierra Colombiana, which is like in deep in North Philly in the Latin community. And if you like dancing, like salsateca and stuff like that, like Saturday night when things go back to or go to the new normal, it's like they have a restaurant downstairs, the Fritada Colombiana, salchicha and queso and all that, all like in an omelet. It's not good for you, but it's delicious. And the bread just like pressed with butter, and they give it to you as like an appetizer. Like, here, while you're waiting, I'm like, okay, like carrot juice. I'm like, oh, this is so delicious. You can eat in the restaurant, and then like you're done, go outside and like get dressed up really nice and go upstairs and just dance. It's like midnight. And then you see like people in like beautiful dresses, just like walking around outside, just ready to get on the dance floor, various ages, just ready to just dance. So you literally like eat a hearty meal, learn Spanish, and then go dancing and then call it a night.
That sounds like an awesome way. Like it's such a cool, unique way to experience Philadelphia that I would never would have thought of.
You know what that reminds me of, Bob?
What?
That reminds me of Peru.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because we literally were at a restaurant, and then there were two levels of this restaurant. The first one was just food. The second one was like more of a bar, and then the third one was like a nightclub.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome.
So Keshler, moving maybe away from food,
Hello.
what are some of the attractions that you might recommend that are off the beaten path? Things to see, certain buildings or certain stories to learn about, or just general experiences for people who are visiting Philadelphia but don't want to either go to the more touristy destinations or maybe already have done them.
One place that comes to my mind immediately, and something I'm working with Hidden Philadelphia with, is exploring Germantown. And for me, Germantown is like the perfect mix of Philly right there. Sometimes I say to people when they say like, oh, you're going to go to Center City, I say, number one, it's not Center City, just downtown. Locals say downtown. You going downtown? Yeah, I'm going downtown. You want to take the Broad Street to downtown? Yeah, I got, or the L to downtown? Yeah. But Germantown is like the perfect mix of what Philadelphia is, as well as that colonial history. Like I was saying earlier, like that was the president's summer home. So like the capital was in Germantown Market Square for a while, as well as you have numerous like museums to left and right. So you're gonna get like a plantation along Germantown Avenue. Now, people don't realize that Philadelphia was like right on the border and was also considered the most, make sure I get the word correct, the most northern southern city. So there's like actually like plantation right near where I live right there. And that's close to Germantown. You have mansions, you have like museums like the Slavery Museum. At least we forget that's like right there on Germantown Avenue. You have the Black Writers Museum. You have Cliveden, which is like Benjamin Chew's house, was like a huge home, which is the site of the Battle of Germantown. It was like before the British actually took over Philadelphia. You have all that on Germantown Avenue. Now, no one ever goes there to go explore it. They want to stay in the downtown area. But like I said, you miss out on a lot if you just stay downtown. And that's just one neighborhood. Right. Still South Philly, around the Italian market. Washington Avenue, the port of entry for migrants. I bring it up. I point out places that used to be like the boarding houses for Italian immigrants after the unification of Italy. I talk about that like prior to the unification, after the unification, where they walked in, where they would like sleep in like these boarding houses. Like one person like get out of bed, another person would take that spot. They go to work and like they make enough money. They like go down the street, take it to a bank that only dealt with Abruzzi. They give their money, send it back home. Either they go back home or they would stay here and build their own family and then start over and over again. Talk about like how that transition from Irish to Italian to now like Mexican. And that's once again, that's another neighborhood. There's a lot there. Like I said, West Philly, how it turned from like the Black Bottom, which is like the like literally the bottom area where they put a number of Black people in that area where it was like considered the worst part of Philadelphia, were developed where University City, its bohemian roots, to now it's like it's West, it's a little Africa now. Now you got like Ethiopian restaurants all up and around like Woodland Avenue, where you got college kids, you have breweries, you have restaurants. That's a third neighborhood. So I tell people like pick up a map, lay it down on the table. What do you figure out like what you want to see and know about Philly? And if you just want to know everything, stay at least a week, because you're going to spend one whole day just exploring that neighborhood because there's something happening everywhere at all times.
Yeah,
Wow.
dude, that's really cool, man. And going back to Germantown,
Yeah.
I'm somewhat familiar with the area, but I have to admit that I've lived in Philadelphia. I've been traveling to Philadelphia my whole life, and I haven't spent a significant amount of time in Germantown. That's up where, is that like Strawberry Mansion?
It's close by. Strawberry Mansion was actually like literally more like it became like a fancy like Jewish community. Another thing I tell, like I had like a Jewish couple come see me and it's like, we heard that they just trying to impersonate her voice. We heard this was a big Jewish community here in Philadelphia. And I said, North Philly, most of it was a Jewish community. And Strawberry Mansion was more like the wealthy Jewish community. It was in that area. And there was actually like a train at one time that would go from the Jewish community there to the areas that was near Marshall Street off Girard Avenue, because that was in a like big, like more of a blue collar Jewish community there. So it's like, yeah, it's close by. You can drive there. It won't take that long. Another thing I try to get the people to understand: Philly is a walking town. Nothing's really that far away from point A to point B. If you stay anywhere downtown, you can pretty much walk back and forth. Thing to remember is that Philly was made in a grid. That's one of William Penn's gifts. Philly is a literal grid. You can't get lost. If you get lost, find City Hall. The guy on top, that's not Ben Franklin, that's William Penn. If you can see that, then you know exactly what the center is. From our waterfront Delaware, you got front, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Once you hit 14, you're going to realize there is no actual 14. That's just Broad Street. And just keeps going 15, 16, 17 until you hit 69th. When you hit 69th, it's literally goodbye. You just left Philadelphia. North to south is Broad Street. East to west is Market Street. With knowing that, you really can't get lost.
You just really simplified it.
Yeah, it's really like, and we have a number of streets named after the Arbor thing. That's another William Penn's gift. Like you have the chestnut, walnut, locust, spruce, boom, 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 boom. Like our street wasn't always called our street. It was sassafras. South Street was called Cedar Street. So we used to go continue on further. It's just people's tastes change, things change. So they decided to rename it. But I said, you cannot get lost in Philly unless you really just you're trying to get lost. It's like, just look for the skyline. You see William Penn, you know where the center is. That is precise center. It's kind of off center, but that's the center of Philadelphia. You find that, you know how to get back to your home or wherever you need to be. You can see that from everywhere.
Yeah. Now, for people traveling from other cities that want to experience Philadelphia, what would be your recommended way of transportation? Would it be the subway or taking a taxi?
I say if you're going to stay in the center downtown area, I'll say center. If you see a downtown area, you can walk it. It's not that, unless you're drunk, then please take like a Uber or something from like wherever you are to your hotel. But it's a easily walkable city. If you need to, the train literally runs the length of like Market Street. It runs that length, so you can get on that 2nd Street. And that's another great thing about Philly. The streets, the 2nd, 5th, 8th, 11th. It runs down street. So you're just counting. You just remember, oh, my hotel's near 13th Street. Boom, I get off. Boom, fine. So I try to tell people, if you really, really want to feel Philly, because there's almost a bit of like illusion for me when I go to Center City. It's more of a projection what people want Center City or Philadelphia to look like. So I tell people, if you want to really feel Philly, get on the train. First, you'll smell it. And then you go to the locals, then you're like, okay, this is definitely Philly. You're hiding down here. So like get on trains if you just want to really see how Philadelphians interact with each other. Go to Reading Terminal. I know I'm going back to go to Reading Terminal. If you really want to see like locals from like each community, go hang out there because that's something great about Reading Terminal. You have people from different communities that may be retired, have nothing to do. They'll go to there, just sit in the eating area and just hang out and talk. And at the end of the day, just go back to their communities. And the same thing's starting to happen to the Burst building. We just hang out there, eat, and then spread out, go back to their own communities in the evening.
Pretty awesome, man.
Sorry, I'm throwing like a lot at you.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, this is incredible to have this conversation with you because I've never had a conversation on Philadelphia quite like this in my entire life.
No. And it's a city that I think I know well.
Right.
So it's funny with Philadelphians, everyone thinks they know everything and at the same time know nothing. Because people will literally stop on a tour like, did you know on this building, in 1856, this happened? I was like, yeah, and they'll stop and like, let me tell you about Frank Rizzo, or I'll know about this. And I'm like, okay. And they'll give their city spiels like, that's what I know. I was like, thank you, sir. And then like, but that's what's amazing about Philly. You can walk down almost every block and there's like a history. There's always something happening. There's not just something happening, but something happened at that block. So there's something everywhere. If you love history, there's a lot of history to absorb. If you just want to like enjoy yourself and have like nightlife and have a drink, Rittenhouse Square is a good example. Me like growing up, because I'm older now, I don't go out as much, like unless like a friend said, hey, come out and check this out. Like South Street at night, you've probably done this a number of times yourself. You can have almost nothing in your pocket and still have a good time on South Street.
Yeah.
Just like walking down the street, seeing how people interact with each other, like watching what's going on. You walk down the street and just have a good time. And plus you get that feel, that bohemian, which my brother likes to tease me about because like I said, he's from Brooklyn, born and raised there. So he says, oh, that's cute. And I said, what's cute? And he's like, oh, you're trying to be like the Lower East Side. I'm like, or no, the Village. He was like, you're trying to be like the Village. I was like, we're not trying to be anything. We're Philly. And he's like, okay, you got that one. You got that one. That street, South Street, was like from like about 8th to the waterfront front. It's just that bohemian part of Philadelphia. You have the Magic Garden. You have like the broken glass art. That's all around. You're going to start seeing that around on South Street. They say you got the mix, like the Italian, the little things that if you know the history of Philadelphia, you start looking around, you start seeing. You see the places that used to be speakeasies that are now restaurants. It's all around you. It's like the first integrated firehouse. You have all this up and down. You have synagogues. You have all that up and down the street, as well as you got restaurants. You have nightlife. You have the great German beer house that's there. There's I think over 100 different beers there, and everyone wearing like the German the garb and the lederhosen and all that. They're wearing it. They're drinking like big cups full of beer. You got all that. So you got the history. You have the beer. You have people that's really just have a good time and relax. And that's what Philly is. Once again, people that just blue collar people that just like to relax, and a mix of different ethnicities and backgrounds, and it gives you all right. It makes you feel like you're wanted and you're just a part of the city. And that goes back once again to William Penn, a city for everyone. Just come together, believe whatever you want to believe, live how you want to live, but just have a good time.
Yeah.
So did the term or the endearing term "city of brotherly love" come from the Quakers, or was that given to Philadelphia later?
It's Greek. That's what Philadelphia actually means. It means a city of brotherly love and sisterly affection.
So where did the name Philadelphia actually come from then? Who gave it that?
William Penn came up with it. He used the city, but he was a great lover of Greek philosophy and all that. He traveled a lot of places, or knew of a lot of places. So he just really took the name and gave the name to Philadelphia. And a little added note, this city is not the only place that's ever been called Philadelphia. I'm going to pronounce the name Amman in Jordan was called Philadelphia at one time.
No way.
Other places in the world that's been called Philadelphia. It's just we're known as the only Philadelphia, but like I said, we're not the only. We're not the first one. We haven't been the only one.
Wow.
Amman was called Philadelphia.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I forgot where it was, but there was a huge plaque, and it was say Philadelphia. Because when I first went to Jordan, I was like, "Where are you from?" I was like, "Philadelphia," and I was like, "I'm from Philadelphia," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And you go, I forgot the name of the structure on top of the
Petra.
It's in the Amman. It's on top of the hill. It like overlooks a little coliseum or something in town. But there's actually a plaque there that says this was Philadelphia from this year to that year. And then it'll go to like the next name. It was called from that year to that year. So the name is Old Philadelphia. Is just, it's an old name. But like I said, William Penn knew of it and decided to name this place Philadelphia.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, very cool, man. Yeah, so I think our listeners have a pretty good idea at this point, the types of tours you offer and the type of information that they're going to get booking a tour with you, which is a lot. Do you mind just telling us briefly about your tour company, maybe giving us some of the names of the tours that you offer and what people can generally expect to experience?
Like I said, the first thing I do with everyone, like ask them, like, what do you want to know about Philly? I see more Caucasian people, they want the general, like, I want to know Philadelphia, the nightlife, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm happy to introduce that to them. The tours that make me feel that the happiest, the proudest, are things like the Underground Railroad tour, where I can kind of like deep dive and like really talk about like African-American past and give them a little, like a view of Philadelphia that never really gets talked about. My feeling is, the reason I became a tour guide, not my feeling, but the reason I became a tour guide is because I want to show people things that people like often don't see or know about Philadelphia. So when I go to the president's house, I can talk about, George Washington did have slaves in his house. And it's like, oh, really? I never knew that. It's like, I'm giving you the good and bad, but I'm giving you everything. Here's the story. I hope that after the tour, you go home, you think about, it's like, was it really true what he said? Let me look this up and read or do some more information. Talk about William Still and the Underground Railroad, but then I'll also go like the Rizzo and like the Italian neighborhoods. So like I said, my tours are reflecting like all the different things that make up Philadelphia. And but like I said, it goes back to asking that question: what do you want to know about Philly? And I'll throw out some things. You just want to go to the art museum. You want to go Eastern State Penitentiary, which is the first isolation in the world was the Eastern State Penitentiary.
Yeah,
was there, and they're like, what? And I say, yeah. I'll tell them, like, it's a Quaker invention, like locking someone in a room by themselves and hoping that you come out like a new person.
The first institution to do
solitary confinement. That's
that's it. The first institution to do that was in Philadelphia.
I'm like, what? Really? And I was like, yeah. Here it is right there. I'm like, what? So I like throw out a lot of questions like, what do you want to know about Philly? And then like I try to show them like Philly is not a one-stop location or one-day location. If you're only here for a day, we're going to cram in a lot. My tours always go over on time. We're going to try to cram in a lot because I want to get past the United States history and Philadelphia history, and I want to start showing them more. I'm always trying to leave them like, there's more, come back, and I'll teach you more about what this city is about. But for those people that do have the time, like I said, the American Revolution tour, it's 5.5 hours.
Wow.
And at the 6 hour point, I'm like, oh, they're like, oh, okay. Underground Railroad tour, it's 5.5 hours.
Wow.
I have another Philly tour where I talk about the indigenous population that lived here in Philadelphia. I like to start with prior to Philadelphia, when it was a Dutch community here, like the old Swedish church, like right near Front and Washington Avenue. I talk about there's a Swedish population here at one time. Like, Swedes live here? Let's go to the old Swedish church. There's a Dutch population here at one time. What? We'll talk about the Lenape. Like, there was an indigenous population here. Let's start with the indigenous people and work our way here. That's why my tours end up going on for so long, because I want to make sure I start at the beginning and give them a full history and give them everyone's perspective. Because when I travel, I ask a lot of questions. I'm trying to be like a real historian and like do research and go to school and like get the real accreditation. But when I go and travel places, I ask questions. I ask questions from every perspective. And I want to know everything. So when I give a tour, I'm going to give you from every perspective. I'm not going to be, it's the black guy, he's only going to talk about the black stuff. It's like, no, we're going to talk about it, but I'm also going to give you the Italian perspective. I'm going to give you the Irish perspective. I'm going to give you the Jewish perspective. Some things you'll like, and hopefully you like it a lot. Some things you may like, but it's the facts. It's the past. I can't hide the past. All I can do is present it to you, and you walk away from it saying, oh, I learned something from that. Now I want to learn more.
Wow. And where can people book with you?
Tours by locals. Easily find me like Philadelphia. It's like every other week I come up with another tour. So it's like, just find me on Tours by Locals. If there's I believe I write a pretty descriptive narration of what you're going to run into or encounter on a tour. But I always promise this: I'm always learning something new. My home is nothing but a library. I have books like everywhere, which is a problem. And
behind you right now.
Yeah, it's like literally I'm moving things. It's like there's books all over. I'm embarrassed to like show you. There's like everything from like Philly history, what I'm looking at, Robert Morris, the ancient world, Arabs, there's like books everywhere. So every time I read and I learn something new, then I want to like give that information towards, like right now I'm reading about, I found a book on Amazon, it's like $35, and there's literally almost no information about Germantown. I was actually able to find like a historian that worked for the Germantown Historical Society, and he wrote a book about Germantown history up until 1933. So it's literally from his creation to about, it's like 1683 or 85, from Germantown's creation to 1933. So it's like just, sorry, I went off and saying got the point I was getting to, but like I said, I'm just trying to get people to understand that there's so much, and if you like come to me and just say I don't know what to see, I'll ask you, well, what do you like to do? Even when traveling the world, when people travel, we'll say, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to learn? What do you want to see? And if they just talk to me a little bit and exchange a few meals, then I can say, meals. Sorry, talking about food again. Philly and their meals. If they tell me like what they like to do, if they're active, if they want to know history, if they want to know like the dark history of Philadelphia, then I can say, okay, this will be the best tour for you. Or if none of those tours kind of like fit them, it's like, we're going to edit this tour a little bit and go in this direction. But always, each tour I give is a little different. That's why I don't give tours that often, because I don't want to just vomit the same information at each tour. I want each tour to be different, and I want to give new information at each tour. So you're like, wow. It's like I get to share something with you, and hopefully I share something, I learned something from them, and you're like, okay, Philly, I didn't expect all this. Then at the end they say, you're better than New York. And it's like, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a ton to learn, man, and you seem to have it nailed down with how you communicate that information and that history to people. And so, if you're listening to this, tours by locals, look up Keshler. I
Yeah.
mean, your tours caught my eye for sure, and that's why I reached out to you to do this. So, thank you for coming on.
Keshler, wait,
Thank you.
I would be very remiss if I did not talk a little bit about 2 years ago, the Philadelphia hosted the ASLA National Convention, which is the American Society of Landscape Architects. And because Philadelphia is one of the oldest cities, because William Penn laid it out in a grid pattern and there was a lot of planning and thought into the city, me and a few colleagues had the opportunity to give an 8-hour tour on the park system. So we did a 60-mile bike ride starting at Reading Terminal Market and biked along the Schuylkill River Trail all the way to Valley Forge National Historic Park.
Jeez, that's long.
And I did a ton of research on the park system in Philadelphia, and I had no idea that Fairmount Park is the largest city in the city limits park in the world.
Oh,
yeah, the largest urban park on the planet.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
And it was completely designed to maintain the water quality that fed the city.
Yes.
And it's absolutely fascinating. So all of these other park systems that tie into it, from Manayunk to Conshohocken, all benefit from the Schuylkill River Trail and from the actual park system.
And if I'm at the art museum and I try to show people like the Fairmount Waterworks.
Yeah.
A lot of people can like, oh wait, it's like we have our waterworks is behind it. The water used to come from the Schuylkill, go to where prior to the City Hall, the center of Philadelphia, which is the center of Philadelphia right now, would go there and go down to the old Philadelphia. So it's like, there's more. Don't think old Philadelphia is just this small area where Ben Franklin, those guys could hang out to. There are people out here. There's things happening everywhere. Like I say, it's a lot, and it's a lot to digest. So I tell people, stay at least a week. The parks are beautiful, and plus, you see what's happening now, like the Spruce Street Harbor and all the things. Now we're using the parks to like have like pop-up bars and places to hang out. Because like I said, it goes back to William Penn. It was always his plan to have this many parks. That's why we have like 4 or 5 like different squares. You have Washington, you have Logan, you have Franklin, you have all this Rittenhouse Square. You have squares spread out throughout the downtown area, because you can go there, you can relax in the park and just let go and just chill out there. And that's what Philadelphia is about. Once again, just going to the park, having a beer, we drink outside, but just relaxing among people. And that's what makes Philadelphia beautiful. That's why I always said, my brother's like, I like Philly much more than Manhattan. Like I'm not a fan of
Oh,
Manhattan.
hands down.
It's
Yeah.
Hands down, Philly.
crowded. The buildings are all too tall. But in Philly, I can walk a few blocks and I'm in a park. I walk another few blocks and there's a small park there. You can always find some shade and there's always something happening here. We have a concert here. There's something always. The city in my eyes. It's being created perfectly, and I didn't appreciate it until like I moved away, and I moved to Atlanta, and I thought every city's designed like Philly, and I went to Atlanta and I said, what the hell? Why is every street named after Peachtree? And I can't understand like how the street could end at a dead end, because say you can walk around Second Street. Second Street extends from the beginning to the end of the city, going north and south. It'll just go north if you're north of the city, north of Market Street, and south if you're the south of Market Street. So like I said, you can always find your way back home, and there's always like a park. Because even as the city expanded, he kept with the parks. There's more. You see families and kids. Now I'm like pitching that you move to Philadelphia. Move to Philadelphia. Just stay here. You're gonna love it. There's a lot of parks. It's a lot of good food. People are happy no matter. Even if you're traveling from outside the United States, you're gonna find those foods that you like at home here as well. That's my pitch.
I think you've made an incredible pitch. I mean, I'm looking forward to diving into Philadelphia in a completely new way. So thank you for that. But before we let you go,
Yes.
we need to get into our late round. We call this the rapid fire question round.
Oh, okay. Let me get ready.
Where we ask you, we're going to do 12 questions now. We scaled it back a little bit for time constraints, but we're going to ask you 12 questions and just answer them honestly and as quickly as you possibly can.
All right. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. What is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the word travel?
Manger. Sorry, I'm Haitian, so manger means food.
All right. What home comfort do you miss the most while traveling?
Oh, Chilean empanadas. I lived in Santiago de Chile for a while, and I love Chilean empanadas, so I've always want to eat it. And when I go back to visit friends, I go to the refrigerator because they know to have it in there for me. Chilean empanadas.
All right. If you could swim in any liquid, what would it be?
Water. I love being near water.
All right.
I was in El Salvador and I literally spent like 2 days. I left the group and just stayed 2 days in the water. And just like, when I'm like, I get excited, like, yeah, I just want to swim. I just want to be there. So water, regular water.
Pick 2 animals that you want to see fight.
A seal and a dog.
Okay, I like that one. I like that.
So water dogs and land dogs.
Yes. Just like one barking back and forth, like you can't go into my territory. It's like you can't come in my territory. So it's an equal like standoff. They just have to stare at each other and hope one of them just decides to go away.
Would you rather drink wine or coffee for the rest of your life?
None of the above. I don't drink wine or coffee, so I usually just I drink a lot of water. I drink about almost like a gallon of water a day.
All right, that's fair. That's good. That's healthy.
Say hello in your favorite language.
Como ye? Haitian Creole again. Como ye is like how you doing? That's how we say hello.
All right.
So, como ye? How you doing?
If you can travel with anyone in the world, living or dead, who would it be?
My mother. She's no longer living, but I've been over 70 countries, and the one country I've never been to is Haiti, which I've always wanted to go and actually see things from her perspective. So Haiti, which is the real name of Haiti, Haiti, land of mountains. That's one place I've always wanted to go, and I feel almost ashamed that I've never actually been there. I know so much about the country, but I've never actually seen or been there. So that would be the location.
I hope you are able to go there soon.
Yeah, oh, me too.
What is one item remaining on your bucket list outside of going to Haiti?
Jeez. Wow. That's a tough one. I'm one of those people that like, if I want to do it, I just do it immediately. Haiti is like the only like the mark on my. Jeez.
We could leave it at Haiti.
Yeah,
That's fine.
All right. Who is your biggest celebrity crush?
Jeez. I don't have a celebrity.
No one? William Penn?
No, it's just because Philadelphians, we don't care. Like, we don't care that you're famous. Like when what was it? Andre 3000 was walking around Philly, everyone's just like, it's Andre 3000, whatever. Philly. Like I used to hang out in Fluid off of South Street, like when it used to exist, and you'd see like the Roots and Questlove and all these celebrities come there, and you can go downstairs to like where Fluid is located, and then like have dinner. And we used to play like games on Sunday, like checkers and chess, and celebrities will come in all the time. We literally look at them like, oh, it's that dude, whatever. So we treat everyone equally, like, you're no big deal. That's part of like Philly, like, you're no big deal. You're just here. So
All right.
we're gonna just kind of let you do your own thing.
If,
So
if
I
you-
don't have a crush. Yeah, sorry.
It's all right.
Maybe your biggest crush is Philly.
Nah,
No.
I like Philly a lot. But like I say, I like the reason I like Philly so much is because Philly prepares you for everything. And when people say that I'm like going to travel somewhere else in the world, I ask them like, where you from? They say, I'm born and raised in Philly. It's like, you do like which part? North Philly, South? You do fine. Philly is like I said, it's got a chip in the shoulder a little bit because of the New York, Washington, us being stuck in the middle and us no longer being the capital. But we've kind of developed on our own. So we're the kind of people that no matter where we go, we can survive because we're used to being in Philly. And that's why I like it so much, because Philadelphia prepared me for everything else. Philadelphia prepared me for living in Chile. Philadelphia prepared me for living in Australia. Philly prepared me of getting lost in Tunisia. Like wandering. I got in an argument with someone in French. I ended up in the wrong town. It's like Philly prepared me for all that. It tells you like, calm down. It ain't that deep. That's the thing we say. It ain't that deep. Relax. Take a breath. Roll with it. You're going to be fine. That's why I talk about Philly that way. It's like it prepares you for whatever happens to you in life. Just got to relax, take it easy, and then boom.
I think that you might have answered this next question. If you were stuck in one city for the rest of your life, which city would it be?
You know, I gotta say Philly. It's because everything I have is here, and it's like literally the whole world is in my home, and like all my friends and all the people. Whenever I travel somewhere, nowhere where I travel to, I end up making at least one friend. That's my personal goal. I was telling someone like, in the last day I have on this planet, I want to sit down, look back on my life, and one thing I want to have achieved is knowing people and meeting people from all throughout the world. So it's like now at this point, it's like I call people family in Spain. They're not blood family, they're family. I go to their home. I'll pop up in the middle of the afternoon, just pop up in Madrid, and I'll go to their refrigerator, and it's like, Keshler's here. It's like, Keshler, and I'm like, hey, and I go, and there's like a picture of me on the fridge, like with the family, and I'm like, cool. And it's like, that's New Zealand. My friends are like, yeah, there's like images of me there. So it's like the whole world, like it feels very small to me because one, I've met so many people throughout the world, but at the same time, I bring a part of home back with me. So I have those like everywhere is in here. So I feel as though I can travel the world by just simply staying in my living room. So yeah, that's my answer. Sorry, wrong answer.
That's good, man. That's good.
If you owned a yacht, what would you name it?
Lonely Planet.
Oh, all right.
All right.
And
all right.
last question.
Most important one.
Which of the Traveler's Blueprint hosts is your favorite?
I'm gonna say Bob because he's really from Philly.
Oh,
Hey, that's two. That's fine. That's fine.
Philadelphia, Harrisburg is a little.
There we go, man. Look, we stick together. I like it. We stick together.
No matter what, no matter where you are in the world, it's like you bump into another Philadelphian, we kind of look at each other and give each other a nod, like.
Yeah.
Is another term we use. I got you. I got you.
I got you.
I got you. You're good.
I like it. Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you. It's been a great honor.
Learned a ton, man. You really you dropped a ton of knowledge in just this short period of time. So that was really insightful.
Yeah, I have a new lens to look at Philly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And we didn't even talk about John, so that's amazing.
We didn't even get into John. I mean, we might be able to do this again and get into a whole different. We didn't get into sports. There's a lot to talk about. So yeah. Hey man, yeah, maybe we'll do it another time.
Yeah, hopefully, man. Once again, thank you. This is a big surprise that you reached out to me, and I was like thinking like you reached out to the wrong person. Like, well, they possibly not want to speak to me. But thank you. It's a great honor. You let me just talk and just go off at the mouth for the last hour. So this has been great.
Hey, thank you.
I'm really looking forward to going on one of those tours with Keshler. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I feel like I know a lot about Philly already, or at least I did before we started talking to him, and now I feel like I know almost nothing about Philly.
That's sort of a reoccurring theme, right? But there's something special about it because it's Philadelphia. So there are plenty of places that I thought I knew a ton about. And then once you talk to someone who lives there, who operates a tour company there, who has more knowledge than you on that place, you're like, wow, wait a second, I didn't know as much as I thought.
Yeah.
And but when it's your home city, when it's a place that I was born in Philadelphia, my family grew up there, I lived there as an adult, and I still learned a lot today. So then getting to go there and maybe walking the Reading Terminal Market with Keshler, or just walking some of the streets that he's familiar with, will be it'll be an incredible experience. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to
Yeah.
it.
I think the one I'm most excited for is the food. Because I thought I knew Philly food pretty well, but he has some great recommendations that
Right.
I'm
Well,
excited to try.
we I think I feel comfortable admitting we knew Philly food for the touristy talking points, right? Like we knew the
Yeah.
cheesesteaks. We know that there's really good restaurants in Philly, but he got into the cultural differences in the food.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I'm really excited to catch up with him.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for listening. As we mentioned in the intro, please subscribe to us if you're listening on YouTube. Subscribe to our podcast on whatever app you want to. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can see our beautiful faces or not. Anyway, follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook. Those are the two most popular that we post pictures of our guests that correspond to the conversation, and reach out to us. If you want to tell us about some of the travels that you didn't have this year and what you did instead, let us know. We're excited to hear them. And thank you for listening, and tune in next week.